If you thought that Dublin was a big change for Farmageddon, just wait for what we have to tell you right now.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Boom! Hit me with that beat, Nick. It's a Locked On College Crossover. Farmageddon. Well, maybe not Farmageddon Friday. It's been a crazy Friday for Locked On Cyclones, but it's Locked On Cyclones and Locked On Kansas State. It's a Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Nick Marovets, you had a crazy Friday. I had a crazy week. And if you are one of a big fan of Farmageddon, well, things just changed crazy over this past week. Brand new coaches for both teams. Jimmy Rogers coming in to Iowa State, and Optimus Klein, Collin Klein coming back to Kansas State. Nick, we got to start with you because it's the fresh news here. Matt Campbell out, heading to Penn State, going to the East Coast, and I don't care what you say, Penn State's on the East Coast. And then you bring in a guy from the West Coast in Washington State and Jimmy Rogers. Crazy stuff happening in Iowa State.
Dude, the last, 24, 48 hours have been an absolute whirlwind. I talked about this on, I believe it was Thursday, that, beginning of October, it was rumored that Matt Campbell might be going out to Penn State. And it really kind of played out like about every other coaching situation Matt Campbell's been involved in has. It's like his name comes up, of course, because it's a big position. And then it fades off into existence because Matt Campbell's not interested in leaving Iowa State. So I didn't think twice about it. I went about my day. I went about my football season, enjoyed Iowa State coming back after 4 straight losses. And then all of a sudden, on a random Thursday night, there's reports that Matt Campbell is picking up steam as the head coach at Penn State. I got to get my bearings about me. I wake up Friday morning. I'm like, you know what? It's just a normal day. We still got some smoke in the air, but of course, Penn State has to do their due diligence. Ask twice, right? You don't want to just ask once, see if you can get them. It got pretty intense pretty quickly. All of a sudden, Matt Campbell is actually going out to Penn State. And then literally about 5 minutes later, we find out Jimmy Rogers of Washington State is the next man up. And I can't be more excited, but also I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know if I've had fully, enough time to mourn the Matt Campbell situation because he will be missed.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I feel like too with Chris Kleiman and Collin Klein. Obviously, I think it's a little bit different, but probably the closest, the most similar coaching searches and coaching hires in the country happen in the Farmageddon rivalry with the fast hiring or retiring this case. And moving on, and then with hiring right away. I mean, like within hours. For you, there was a report coming out that Matt Campbell took the job in Penn State, and 57 minutes later, Jimmy Rogers was named the head coach. That was the social media graphic from Iowa State. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought it was from like 27 for Sports, one of those meme things. I thought it was a meme showing that Jimmy Rogers was hired that fast, because you see Penn State, it takes them 50-something days to hire a coach, and Iowa State takes 50-something minutes. It's crazy, but it just shows how important it is, one, to make sure you get a coach right away right now. Obviously, we're in the middle of National Early Signing Day that just happened at the end of this week. Transfer portal only happens once this year in January, and you're trying to find a way to get yourself back into Big 12 contention. You missed it this year. Kansas State, of course, missed it this year, and that is a way to get back there. And if maybe Jimmy Rogers is the guy. I like him. I'll talk more about Jimmy Rogers in a minute. I think he's a great addition for Iowa State. I think he fits the mold. He fits the identity. But man, Matt Campbell was a solid piece. I mean, when you talk about, if you go into the season this year in the Big 12, take away the entire, what happened this year. I think we had this conversation on one of the Farmageddon Fridays when we ranked the coaches in the Big 12, and we talked about tenured coaches. And of course, at the moment, Gundy, Whittingham was at the top when we started the season, but Kleiman and Campbell were right there too. And when you were ranking them towards how great they were, how they were seen in the eyes of prestige and things like that, they were towards the top, if not 1 and 2.
Absolutely. And Matt Campbell, I think it's, full decade at Iowa State. Now with him out, I do think it's interesting. I believe I saw that Dave Aranda is now the longest tenured head coach in the Big 12.
Wow.
Because, obviously teams coming into the Big 12 affects that. The coaches at the
Assuming Whittingham retires, but yeah.
Well, even then, though, because he's only been in the Big 12 for so long, like looking at coaches in the Big 12, Dave Aranda's coached in the Big 12 the longest is what basically the stat was, which I find to be quite interesting. And yeah, Matt Campbell, I mean, we talked about this a little bit off air, but the jump that Iowa State made with Matt Campbell at head coach is hard to quantify. It really is. And like I was talking about on my show, I was 15 when Matt Campbell was hired. Like all I've really known is Matt Campbell. So it's hard to wrap my head around what Iowa State was without him and what he's become, like what he's turned this program into. Obviously looking back, I can see the numbers, but just the vibes of like, if we get a 5-win season, a 6-win season, that's success. That's we're building something. Now we're 8-4 and we're disappointed, which that just speaks to what Matt Campbell has turned this program into. I guess I'm curious. I think a lot of Iowa State fans right now are torn between like upset and sad and excited. We're a mix of emotions because this is like 24 years old. How are Kansas State fans feeling right now?
Elated, through the roof. I mean, for both reasons. One, for the reason that Matt Campbell is gone, and for the reason that Collin Klein is new head coach. We'll stick on the Matt Campbell conversation first. I still think it's elated. I still think that Kansas State fans are pumped that Matt Campbell's out because, let's be honest, Matt Campbell had the best of Chris Kleiman over the years. Now, Kansas State did get a Big 12 championship. Matt Campbell did not. You can always play that game. But when you look at the head-to-head battle, Matt Campbell did, dare I say, own Chris Kleiman in the Farmageddon rivalry, especially the last couple of years. And we all know what happened in Dublin. That ruined our season. I mean, we wound up losing to Army a couple weeks later, Nick, and that had a lot to do. I mean, we were so mad losing in Dublin that our quarterback's parents got in a fight. I mean, in Ireland. I remember that. That was, I know that seems like a decade ago after all the things that just happened this week, but that was just in August. So
that's crazy.
That was like the last time we had a Farmageddon Friday. Like that's how insane this was. But no, I think the Kansas State fans are pumped, and the fact of just being able to see a fresh new face, and I think it's cool. And I think this gives a nice little refresh, and this should be a shout and point in the direction of Brent Yormark. This is a perfect opportunity to reset the expectations of Farmageddon. The fact that you're saying that, hey, maybe you're not going to protect this rivalry anymore. You're bringing in 2 first-year coaches into the Big 12.
This is the time.
This is the perfect opportunity to reset that and say Farmageddon is back. You're getting Jimmy Rogers into the conference. Collin Klein is like the most loved person in Kansas State history, with the exception of Bill Snyder, maybe. And I think that he has the potential. I think he has the potential to maybe outrun him in the years coming down. I think this might be the last time, before I am qualified for AARP membership, which is still a couple decades away, might I add. I know you can see some grays, but it's still a couple decades away, that Kansas State has a coaching search if everything goes well, because Collin Klein is absolutely loved inside of this organization. Man, this is fun. Let's do this. Let's just make a mixed bag of this whole episode, because I feel like there's just been so much things happening, and it's the perfect way to get this out on a Saturday and just kind of get to our bearings. Matt Campbell obviously gave you 10 good years, got you your 10-win season for the first time in ever, right?
Yep.
Bill Snyder was amazing for Kansas State. There's no doubt about that. Chris Kleiman was great. I think, second winningest coach in Kansas State history. We don't talk about Ron Prince. We're talking Kansas State. Collin Klein's going to be great. Does Matt Campbell deserve a statue in Iowa State?
Jamie Pollard thinks so. If you're asking me, I'm going to have to say yes. I can see that there's going to be people who are upset about him leaving. And I think that's fair, right? But I also think at the same time, you have to acknowledge what he's done for Iowa State. Like the situation that Iowa State was in prior to Matt Campbell versus now. Like and Jamie Pollard talked about this in the media availability he did. Like when they hired Matt Campbell, if you were to say that they were going to make 2 Big 12 championship games, he would have probably not believed you. That just wasn't really something that Iowa State was known for, right? Like when Matt Campbell goes to Penn State, I'm sure he'll say something along the lines of, we're going to bring a Big 10 championship here. Like every coach says that wherever they go. There wasn't really hopes or there's hopes, but not expectations that Matt Campbell is going to do that. And he did it twice in the first 10-win season ever. So provided they can do a good job with the statue, I say, yeah, you probably should put him out there. Do you think that Matt Campbell is one of the greatest coaches in all of the Big 12 history? Or do you think that this was just kind of a 10-year blip on the radar, good for Iowa State, but we're ready to move on as a conference?
Oh man, that's tough. I'm with you, by the way, on the statue. I don't think you can build it anytime soon. I think if he sticks around and stayed in Iowa State Cyclone his entire career, I think you build that before he even plays his last game. You unveil it at halftime for him in his final game. But the fact that he's moving on to Penn State, I think it makes it a little shady, and he'll get it eventually when he retires, maybe 5 years after retirement. Best in the Big 12, man. There were some really good coaches in the history of this conference.
Like Gundy even just obviously fired this last season, but
you're saying if you're trying to, are you saying like Mount Rushmore, like top 4? Is that what you say?
Yeah, give him a Mount Rushmore. I'm not gonna say he's number 1, but
no, I would have to leave him out, but I would say honorable mention for sure.
Okay, I'm actually okay with that as a non. For me, like I'm literally looking at my sweatshirt, looking at my background. I'm gonna put him in the top 4 just because of what he's done for our program. But that's why I ask, as someone who's not firsthand with Iowa State, how do you view him? But I'm okay with that.
I view him as someone who gave Kansas State a headache and very excited to see him go to Penn State. That's what I see. But Jimmy Rogers, he could be a coach that gives Kansas State headaches. And I'm excited to talk about him, at least until Iowa State and Kansas State play next season, because right now it's all hypotheticals. Look at us talking like SEC folks. Let's discuss more next right here on this Locked On College crossover. But first, Nick, like the news that we have had all week, the NFL Sundays also move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what making live bets with FanDuel. That's why it makes it so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment. I know we're talking some crazy mixed bag here with Matt Campbell, Jimmy Rogers, Colin Klein, Chris Kleiman, but I know you, and you are a New England Patriots fan, and man, they look really good right now. And when you're talking about these live bettings, how fun it would be to bet on Drake May right now, whether he gets hot, a receiver gets hot, that defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump right into the moment. So if you want to bet on the Patriots or the Chiefs or something like that, and you want to get right in the middle of the action, visit FanDuel.com. Place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast. So does news, and so can you. I mean, what a wild week for Farmageddon. I mean, that's the way that we need to run this show today, right here on a Locked On College crossover, Locked On Kansas State, Locked On Cyclones. What a crazy week and what a crazy Friday. I woke up to Chris Kleiman retiring, and then just a few hours later, there was tweets saying that Colin Klein would be targeted, and there was just a conversation. There was no coaching search for Kansas State, and I like that. As a fact of there's just no drama. It helps with the recruiting. We didn't lose anybody in the 2026 class. We actually flipped somebody from Iowa State over to Kansas State. And it shows the momentum is still there, which is exciting. But it's a different type of window, right? All of the stuff that happened with Kansas State was all Kansas State. Chris Kleiman, and then a guy who coming over from Texas A&M, sure, Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M, but a Kansas State legend. Heisman Trophy runner-up behind Johnny Manziel and Manti Te'o. He was a fantastic offensive coordinator for Kansas State, helped them win the Big 12 championship when he was a quarterback in 2012 and in 2022 as an offensive coordinator, and then being the head coach now for Kansas State. It's exciting stuff. We talked about what we thought about Matt Campbell moving in. What do you think about a legend of Kansas State taking over the helm in this great Farmageddon rivalry?
I'm not necessarily nervous yet. I think I'm going to have to see a little bit more from what he can do as a head coach, but I can't deny the fact that Kansas State certainly has momentum. And I think that you probably have a little bit of an edge in that department, right? When you're considering Kansas State versus Iowa State momentum wise, I would lean a little bit in Kansas State's favor. And I think it'll be very interesting to see, since at the time of recording this, Iowa State's, coaching change is so new. I'm only aware of basically one player in the portal. So I don't know what the change is going to look like for the current team or for the recruiting class or anything like that. But as far as Kansas State is concerned, I think you guys have a lot going for you in that respect, and just keeping him in the or keeping the guy in the building, if you will, with Klein. And it'll be interesting to see how he plays out in this rivalry. But you can't sleep on Jimmy Rogers either,
No, and I want to get to that in a second, but Gene Taylor, athletic director of Kansas State, said one thing that's going to be really important, and I agree with him, in this new era of NIL. I think we can all agree with this. Iowa State, especially because of the financial issues that have always been talked about over the last couple months, is how the donors are going to respond to these new coaches. That's something that's big. Obviously, these donors are going to have to step up and make some sort of action. Well, this is a brand new world. 10 years ago, when Matt Campbell was hired as the head coach, donors didn't have to do what they have to do now. Even 7 years ago when Chris Kleiman was hired as the head coach, they didn't have to do what they had to do. Now you get a brand new head coach, and Collin Klein obviously has a great relationship with Kansas State, being, an offense coordinator, a quarterback, the love of Manhattan. Donors, according to athletic director Gene Taylor, the support is, quote, unbelievable. So that's exciting. But on the flip side, with Jimmy Rogers, this is a brand new coach. This is a guy with no Iowa State experience, although it sounds like Jimmy Rogers really wanted to be the coach, according to athletic director Jimmy Pollard.
Yeah, actually, it's a really good, thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's absolutely worth talking about. We talked about this a little bit when the news just broke that, like, there was a quote that was circulating that Jimmy Rogers has been wanting to be the head coach of Iowa State for a while. And I was like, okay, it's kind of interesting. I said it might be the end of the road for Jimmy Rogers as a hope. And then Jamie Pollard is with the media, and he tells this story of like meeting Jimmy Rogers and talking to him multiple times about wanting to be the head coach at Iowa State and making moves to make that happen. It's hard to believe, but I think Iowa State may have found a guy who Iowa State was his end goal. And I talked about this on Friday. My main concern was, if we don't get Matt Campbell to come back, can we get any coach to come back? Are we just now a stepping stone school where we're a lower tier Power 4, whatever? It's a place where you can go to show other schools, yeah, I can coach at the Power 4 level. Yeah, I'm ready to move on to LSU. Yeah, I'm ready to move on to Penn State, for crying out loud. Like, I was afraid of that. And it seems like Jimmy Rogers is completely bought in on Iowa State. And so from the donor perspective, yeah, we don't know this guy very well, but like, we didn't really know Matt Campbell either. So we're going to have to just on some level trust this guy. And I expect Iowa State donors to step up a little bit more, actually, considering the fact that I think that was a big part of Matt Campbell's decision. I cannot say that for certain, but I do think that when he took a look at Iowa State's future versus Penn State's future, and the words of Jamie Pollard, what he said the future would look like for Iowa State and what Penn State's working with, I can't definitively say that did not go into his decision-making. So I really hope that Iowa State donors step up, but I don't know if it'll be quite to the same level as Kansas State.
This Jimmy Rogers guy has a lot in common with what former Kansas State head coach Chris Kleiman did. Won some FCS national championships. Of course, he moved over to Washington State this year, coached for one season, and went 6-6. Got to a bowl game. What was really impressive about it, though, was he did it with about 75 new players, and most of those new players were from the FCS, and he found a way to do that. And it's not like they played cupcakes, although that Washington State's dealing with that whole Pac-2, Pac-12 kind of conversation this year, waiting for the new one to start next July. They went to Ole Miss on the road, and technically the last play of the game, they had an opportunity to win the game. It would have been like laterals and things like that, but they technically had a shot to win that game against the number 4 team in Oxford, right? Wow. Lane Kiffin, we all know what's going on with the Lane Kiffin drama right now. Jimmy Rogers almost beat Lane Kiffin in his own home.
Yeah.
Then the following
you can't
week,
look past that.
No, you can't. The following week, they almost beat a ranked Virginia team who are battling for a college football playoff spot as well, battling for the ACC championship game today. And so that's 2 college football playoff team potentials, right? Jimmy Rogers almost beat them. James Madison, a college football playoff potential. They almost beat them this year as well. And they still found a way to go 6-6. Now, they did lose to Oregon State one of the 2 times. They did get blown up by North Texas at the beginning of the season before a lot of people thought North Texas was actually a pretty decent team. Remember Eric Morris, now the new head coach of Oklahoma State. So a lot of things going to come into fruition in this new Big 12. There's a lot of new things, a lot of new faces, with now Colin Klein, Jimmy Rogers, Eric Morris. It's going to be a wild Big 12, but I think there's a lot to be excited about with Jimmy Rogers. I think you're going to like him.
I'm excited for what Jimmy Rogers has to offer. And you make a really good point. Like, the Big 12 is so chaotic, just year in and year out, right? You never know. Like, I always reference Kansas last year because no one was expecting them to just go on this crazy run and totally mix up the Big 12 championship games. That is only, I feel like, amplified now with all of these new names. Like, it's not a bunch of names that we've heard for years, like Mike Gundy and Matt Campbell and Klein. Like, these are a ton of new guys. And so we're going to talk about 2026 here in just a few minutes. But my first initial thought is, like, this conference is going to be chaos.
Yeah, no, 100%. This conference has not changed at all. Just a couple faces have, for sure. 2026 is going to be no different. BYU, Texas Tech set the face off in the Big 12 championship game today. Maybe that's changes. we've seen this for year in and year out. If you don't count Texas and Oklahoma, since they left anyways, we haven't had a back-to-back team make it to the conference championship game in a very long time. That means it's up for grabs. Can Iowa State and Kansas State make themselves back into Big 12 contention with a brand new coach in 2026? Well, we'll talk about that next. A Locked On College crossover. But first, Nick, I got to tell you about these, and I know you know about them, but I truly enjoy these. With the holidays officially here, it means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, or a guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before getting it. So when they plug in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. You know what I like about these? You know, I'm from a military family. I got family on the East Coast, West Coast. You know about that, East Coast and West Coast, Penn State being an East Coast team, right? And the fact that I've used these Aura frames in the past, been able to give it to family members, they can put it in their living room. You can send photos updated, so you don't have to put them on social media, and they get a surprise when they sit down with their coffee or tea or get ready for their shows for the night and see really cool pictures of my family. And so whether it's grandparents, parents, newlyweds, anyone who loves photos, this is a perfect time. And I know you, just by looking at you, Nick, you don't like wrapping stuff. And with this, packaging comes gift ready. No price tag, no wrapping needed. That's a huge win. You don't like tape, do you?
I'm not a big tape guy. Not a big tape guy.
You don't look like a tape guy. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com. Get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver Mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. The deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get in on the time for the holiday. Support the show and support the fact of people hating tape by mentioning us at the checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Man, what does 2026 look like for the Big 12? That's the biggest question here. You know, BYU, Texas Tech, obviously playing in the Big 12 championship game. You know, if everything works out, if the cards work out, both of them will be in the college football playoffs when Selection Sunday hits. I'm not holding my breath, unfortunately, but I do think they both deserve to be there. But what does it look like in 2026, especially with Kansas State and Iowa State here on this Locked On College crossover between us two schools? It's a Farmageddon Friday, well, belated Friday, I guess you could say belated here, because Friday was just too crazy, especially for Nick with the hiring and moving on of Jimmy Rogers and Matt Campbell. But what does 2026 look like for you? Do you think that they can find themselves back into not only fighting for a Pop-Tart, but getting yourselves into the Big 12 championship game contention in 2026?
You know, actually, just really quickly, because the way you phrased that, it made me kind of think I had to use the big pink mushy thing inside my skull, and I realized it feels like yesterday that we were talking about Farmageddon Fridays. This season absolutely flew by. And yeah, the last few days have been chaotic for both of us. But let's just take a second and enjoy what's left of football season, because unfortunately it's going to be over before we know it. And all of a sudden we'll be waiting for, the first game of next season. And speaking of next season, as far as Iowa State is concerned, I was talking about this a little bit yesterday. I'm not expecting Iowa State to be in the Big 12 championship next season. Okay. I think that would be actually pretty unfair to Jimmy Rogers. I don't think it's that's a fair expectation, but I do expect in the next 5 years, Iowa State will be there. And I think next season is a stepping stone where I predict they make a bowl game. All right. As of right now, based on the information that I have with the players and whatnot, we'll obviously see how the transfer portal goes. I'm sure Jimmy Rogers will bring over some wide receivers or whatever from Wazoo. I think Iowa State will be bolstered in that capacity. I expect a bowl game. I think that's relatively fair. I don't know if I necessarily the biggest game I'm kind of teetering on is the Iowa game. How does that play out? Because that's a Big Ten opponent. But as far as Kansas State is concerned, are you expecting an appearance in the Big 12 championship game?
Well, first, just to finish your thought there, if you only thinking that Iowa State can make a bowl game, that's basically saying that in year one of Jimmy Rogers, you expect them to be as good as what Kansas State was this year, or what Baylor, or just a little bit better than Baylor, right? I think both those teams underperformed. I think both those teams obviously are better than what their record showed. Not by much, but I think they are. But that's the same kind of boat, just like putting it in perspective for the future. Jimmy Rogers has to get that new Iowa State team, depending how many players leave in the portal and how many players he brings over. He has to get them that good in the Big 12 next year. You still think that's doable?
Absolutely. And actually, you saying that made me feel like maybe I should be aiming a little bit higher. Like, I do think that Iowa State, and we haven't talked about this. I've talked about this a fair amount. There's a reality where if there are less injuries, which I know this is all hypothetical, coulda, shoulda, woulda, call me an SEC school, call me an Iowa fan. It is what it is. But Iowa State, realistically, without as many injuries, probably could have been an 11-win team this year. They were so close, even with the injuries and those 4 losses. Every single one, I can make a case that they should have won those games. So yes, we went 8-4 this season, and the 6-6 season is like, it's a downgrade, but Iowa State's so close. If they don't lose a ton of talent, if they can buy into the Jimmy Rogers hype, I think they're very close. And I think 6-6 is easily attainable. Like I expect 6-6 if this roster looks relatively similar to this last season.
You know, Kansas State was going to see Jimmy Rogers either way. Washington State comes to Manhattan this year, and he's still got to come to Manhattan. So Iowa State playing in Manhattan this year for Farmageddon. Hopefully it's at the end of the season, right? Not week 0. I want Farmageddon week 11, week 12. Better put up in the right spot, Brent. Come on.
Some snow.
Man, if this game would have been in Ames,
oh my goodness,
it would have happened, right?
Yeah, well, I'm still dealing with the snow over here, and I'm not even in Ames. In Ames was way worse. So it would have been awesome for the game, but yeah, it was really snowy.
Collin Klein put this out in his press conference on Friday when he was introduced as a new head coach. When we talk about expectations for 2026.
Okay, perfect.
He said he wants to make this program, quote, the new old school. And he focused on the Bill Snyder mentality with the power cat, with him being underneath Bill Snyder as his head coach. What he learned as the Texas A&M offensive coordinator under Mike Elko, getting out of his comfort zone, his recruiting that he learned in the state of Texas. We all know how good, important recruiting is in the state of Texas, not just for the Big 12, but literally any team in the country. And then he said this, quote, "We will take this program where it's never been before." First thing that comes to my mind, I think the only thing he actually meant, of course, is winning a national championship. I don't think it's going to be a Big 12 championship team right off the bat. But if we're sitting at week 11, week 12, when Farmageddon is supposed to be happening, I think they're not eliminated from Big 12 contention. That's where I put them in 2026. I think this is a team that can easily be anywhere between 8-4, 9-3, maybe even achieve and be 10-2. But I don't know, looking at the rest of the teams like Texas Tech and BYU, the way that they're focusing, what we just saw with Sataki, almost left to Penn State before Matt Campbell did. And then what?
BYU and I kind of have some beef right now. If Kalani Sataki would have gone, we still have Matt Campbell, which, like I said, excited about Jimmy Rogers, but like this is still really fresh. So BYU.
Is it BYU's fault or is it Crumble Cookie's fault?
You know, I don't know. I think that's a fair question, right? Actually.
I think so too. Or maybe all of this is James Franklin's fault. Let's end here.
Oh man, yeah, you might as well point that direction too.
James Franklin was the Kansas State quarterback coach. He recruited Colin Klein. James Franklin destroys Penn State's fired. Kansas State then locks down Colin Klein, and then Penn State goes for Matt Campbell after James Franklin was fired, leaving in Iowa State. I wouldn't call it disarray, but like it's definitely a big change.
It's shocking,
crazy.
Man.
So maybe we should say thank you, James Franklin, or what do you think?
You know, I'm going to miss Matt Campbell, but I'll say thank you because I believe in Jimmy Rogers. I do.
I like the new vision. I like that. And there's a lot to be excited about. I think there's a lot of optimistic ways for both of our programs to be moving forward inside this crazy wild west of the rev share, trying to fight with these Texas Techs, these BYUs inside the Big 12. If anybody can do it for Kansas State, I believe in Colin Klein. And it's nice to hear that you are already excited about the Jimmy Rogers era at Iowa State. Farmageddon's going to be wild. Either way, your mark, you need to make sure this rivalry sticks around. We need to do these more often, man. These are always so fun.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it feels like it's been forever since we've done one of these, which is how I know it actually has been forever. And both of these teams looking at something brand new as far as coaches go, and with the portal coming up and everything, like, yeah, I agree. We should probably run these a little bit more often.
All right. Well, that sounds good. You hear that there. If you like these, let us know in the comment description below. We've got lots of stuff to talk about here in the future. I know that Nick is going to be diving into more of this conversation with athletic director Matt Campbell, as well with Jimmy Rogers. Of course, we're talking more on Kansas State. And then the basketball. Don't forget about basketball. You guys are playing a big game on Saturday, and we got a big game on Saturday as well because Colin Klein should be there against Seton Hall. Please like the video. Please subscribe. It's been a Locked On College crossover. Whew. Wow.
Man. Just move so fast, man.
Speechless.